Welcome to the College Football Bros. I'm Michael Newman.
I'm Ryan Newman.
And I'm Trey Newman.
All right, on this episode, we are going to re-rank the college football head coaching hires from before the 2020 season. Just hindsight's 2020, so we're going to adjust on based on what we learned last year. But let us know in the comments below who you think was the best hire. It's always helpful to hear from other people so we don't get group thinking here, especially if you're a fan of one of the teams. You might have better insight than us.
Yeah.
But let's start with how Athlon ranked these hires at the time. So this was back in March of 2020. What do you see here? We got the top five. What's Ryan? What are your takeaways?
Yeah, I mean, the immediate thing that just jumps out to you starts at the top, and you got to go with number one, Mike Norvell. If you kind of think of him at the number one spot, and you only win 3 games, and you just have about as bad a year as you can imagine. FSU was supposed to be a good team this year with all the returning production they had. They were supposed to win like 7 games. I think that was their season win total set before the year. It was just a train wreck. It would seem like more of the same. You kind of thought maybe Norvell would come in and stabilize that program, but I mean, on the field was terrible. Recruiting wasn't that great. I think you just kind of look at it like, hey, there's no doubt about it. Norvell would be lower on this list based off of 2020.
When I looked at it, I was just more the name that kind of jumped out to me that's not the traditional household name was Nick Rolovich there at third. I was high on Rolovich. I think we all like Rolovich, especially the fit with Wazoo, but it was just kind of surprising when you look at the list of these 5 and some of the bigger programs that they're at. He kind of stood out just in the sense that Athlon had him so high.
Yeah, and for me, I'm looking at number 4, Mike Leach. Spoiler alert: he is not on our top 5. I mean, he was reasonably close.
Yeah,
but I don't think you should feel too much worse about him after this year. It was year one, and he's trying to, of course, put in his unique offensive system. Didn't quite have the receivers that were tailored to it, and it was in a COVID offseason, so that was not ideal situation there. So I still think you can be, if you were optimistic about Leach before, you probably still are now.
Yeah, he brought in some solid talent, and he's got some QBs coming in, highly rated guys, so he'll get it going. He's proven he's had success at some very tough places before.
Yep. All right, well, let's get to our top 5 best hires from before the 2020 season. And the way we did this is the 3 of us each submitted our top 10 list, and we kind of averaged those together to come up with this top 5. So who do we got first here, Trey? Number 5.
Number 5, Jimmy Lake, Washington. I'm feeling about the same, but mainly because I was high on him last year. He is a little tough to gauge. They only played 4 games this year. The Pac-12 was the last to come about. I'm confident he'll be good, but the challenge is how good. He's a very good recruiter. They had a small class this year. I was still hoping that it might have been even a little bit better than it was. I mean, it was respectable given everything. They got some transfers. He has a lot coming back to the 2021 team, so they should be good next year. So he's not going to have many excuses if they don't perform on the field next year.
Yeah, I probably would have had him a couple slots higher this time last year. I was super high on him. Still I'm high, but like you said, I thought the recruiting was going to take a big jump under him, and at least year one it hasn't done that yet.
Yeah, I have him about the same, just because I didn't expect a huge jump in recruiting because he was already with the program and doing a lot of recruiting for Chris Peterson already. It wasn't like he was just magically all of a sudden he's in the group or on the staff. So I have him about the same. He went 3-1, good first year. I think a lot rides on. Our kind of opinion of him rides on this 2021 season with all the returning production that UW will have, and they're supposed to be a top 15 type team. So we'll see. The jury is definitely still out, especially when they only played 4 games. So it's hard to judge.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on to number 4, we had Sam Pittman. He moved way up on our list. The bros, pie in the face on Sam Pittman so far. We were all really low, most notably me. But we will preface it by saying we did think that they hired an extremely good staff around Sam Pittman. It was just Sam Pittman himself was just an underwhelming hire. But with the offensive coordinator,
Kendall
Briles, and then Barry Odom at defensive coordinator, I mean, it was about as good as you can do. I mean, those were great hires. So we were like, okay, well, that's pretty darn good. So they exceeded expectations, no doubt about it. Yes, they only won 3 games, but if you look, their season win total was, I think it was 1.5 or maybe even just 1. So just that they exceeded. But we all know, watching their season this year, they were even better than 3-7 record. They were so close to winning a couple more games. Really should have won at least one more game. They kind of got a little unfortunate referee calls there on some of them, but besides the point, they were much, much better. Their recruiting is more than fine. They were top 25 in the recruiting coming in for 2021. So you have to feel a ton better. Bros do for sure on Sam Pittman.
Yep, 100%. Moving on to number 3, the third best hire of last offseason, Jeff Hafley, Boston College. And, it's difficult to predict how any new hire is going to do, as we've learned doing this over the last few years on the podcast. But for me, it's even harder, I feel like, when it's a guy who's never been a head coach. So, of course, Hafley coming in as defensive coordinator from Ohio State. And he had a great year one. I mean, maybe great's overstating it, but very good. 6-5. That was better than Boston College was expected to be. They were competitive in almost every game. They almost beat Clemson. They hung in there with Notre Dame. So, and they had their best recruiting class finish in a long time. They finished 36th, which is good for them. So I think he deserved to climb this high on the list.
No doubt. They looked good on the field this year compared to years past. Moving on to number 2 on the list, Greg Schiano of Rutgers. I feel better at this point. I loved the hire, but I actually still do feel a little bit better based on what he did in year one. Rutgers in the Big Ten now is a different animal than the Big East when Schiano was there previously, but he's still the right guy for the job. They pulled out 3 wins this year. They weren't expected to do that. And if you watch them play, you could tell that they were just much better. They even had a crushing 3 overtime loss to Michigan. They brought in the 41st ranked recruiting class, which was their best in years. They still have a long ways to go to be a little bit more relevant in the Big Ten, but a very encouraging year one.
Absolutely. No doubt about that.
The perfect fit at Rutgers.
Yep, he was. I hope he keeps it going. I mean, it was fun seeing Rutgers have their moment there for about a decade ago. Hopefully they can get it going again. All right, let's move on to number 1 here. We're going to go with Lane Kiffin.
Oh, yeah.
Our boy Lane Kiffin. 5-5 first year at Ole Miss, a little bit better than expectations, but I think the exciting thing, of course, when you watched Ole Miss play this year was just the offense and how well they played. And yes, they went 5-5, but if you look at a couple of their losses, they had Alabama. They played as well as anybody played them. It was down to the wire, down in the fourth quarter. Corral was just unstoppable in that game, and then of course they took Florida to the end there too. So it was a very competitive 5-5. They recruited really very well. They got about 18th in the nation, which was for all these first year guys. That was the highest of any coach. So the best recruiting class of this bunch. And we the bros we all think he's going to do even better on the recruiting front next year. So it's hard not to be encouraged if you're in Ole Miss right now, especially since other programs wanted Kiffin too. I mean, after such a good first year. So Kiffin number 1.
Yeah, and this one was unchanged for me. He probably would have been my number 1 last year. Obviously, I've always been a big Kiffin fan, but which is weird as a USC fan. But I love him. He's a good coach. He's a great recruiter too.
I know.
And one of the things to gauge with these lists is what was the buzz going into last year, and what's the buzz going into next year. And I think it's equally the same. Like there is a buzz for Ole Miss that they can be a player, and so it's a testament to Lane.
All right, so let's take a look at our top 5 here on the screen. But how about some honorable mentions? Who was the highest, maybe 1 or 2 guys that was in maybe your top 5 but didn't make our collective top 5?
They were just outside. I had a very similar list, so just outside. 2 guys I just want to really quickly mention. We've talked about Mike Leach, but it was pretty funny to watch the media coverage of him this year, how they beat LSU week 1, and a lot of people kind of overreacted and said the Pirate is unlike anything the SEC has ever seen. Yeah. And then only a few short weeks later, after a losing skid, they say his style isn't going to work in the SEC, and they kind of write him off. He's proven he can win in tough situations in Pullman and Lubbock, so I don't see why he can't at least have some success. And then the other guy I do want to mention, and maybe you guys are thinking about, is Eli Drinkowitz of Missouri. Yeah. I'm feeling better than I was. It's a tough job in the SEC. He got their best recruiting class that they've had in the SEC. I think he can help elevate them to the middle of the conference.
Those are good ones. I had Jeff Traylor, I think third on my list from UTSA, because UTSA was expected to be one of the worst teams in the country this year, and they ended up being pretty good. They were 7-5, and he brought in the #1 recruiting class in Conference USA.
They only lost to BYU by a touchdown.
Yeah, they were pretty good. So that's
good.
Compared to expectations. There's nothing he could have done better, basically, in year one.
No doubt about it. Yeah, I'm with you there. Jeff Traylor was definitely high on my list. I'll say number 7 on my list, because we mentioned all the others ahead. Brady Hoke, what he did in first year at San Diego State. If you look at it and you just look at surface level, yeah, he went 4-4. Okay, yeah, they've been used to like 8, 9, maybe even some 10-win seasons oftentimes there in San Diego. But, I mean, of course, they're shortened season, but they had a tough schedule. They played some tough teams, and they played them relatively well. If you just look at analytics and kind of the SP plus numbers, they were about what you would expect SDSU has been. So, but now he brings in a great recruiting class, the best recruiting class coming in the Mountain West, meaning you're better than Boise bringing in talent. So that's a very good start for Brady Hoke. I think they're going to jump up to kind of that 8-9 win type team coming again next year. So I think he's setting himself up well again. It's kind of weird dipping back in that, going double dip there on Brady Hoke, but seems to work out so far.
Yeah, you never know when a coach returns. Obviously, at North Carolina with Mac Brown, it's working out great. At Utah State with Gary Anderson, yeah, it did not work out so well.
Gary Anderson really a weird guy. He's made some weird choices as a coach, dude.
Very true. Very true. I'm more confident in Brady Hoke right now.
Yeah.
All right, that'll do it for the College Football Bros. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Helps YouTube show our videos to more people. We're trying to grow, so we'd really appreciate that. Also, let us know in the comments below who you would have #1, maybe a coach that we didn't leave on or we didn't name in this episode that you think deserved a mention.
Early. It's so early. Somebody, 1 year we could have the guy has 20 on our list could end up being the top. You never know. So
that's very true. Very true. Ryan, I was really just going to end the episode there. It was really flowing nicely.
I just had to interrupt. Sorry,
you know what?
man.
Don't thumbs up the episode. Give it a thumbs down. Ryan ruined it. No. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks for watching.
You've been watching the College Football Bros. Be sure to subscribe here on YouTube and in your podcast app for college football content all year round. For bonus episodes and access to our Discord chat, join our Patreon at patreon.com/collegefootballbros. Thanks for watching.